Oh.
I don't have enough night on this side. It's like I'm like a moon.
Wait. I thought we discussed your background. Okay, well.
Good morning. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. Welcome to LoveBabz, LoveTalk. April is National Poetry Month, and today I'm celebrating with my love, my dear friend, the unboyfriend Joy in person, Andrew. He loves poetry as much as I do, probably more. But before I get into that, thank you, Harry. The girls look beautiful in the picture. Bella and Daisy. And a happy birthday to my sister Lo in New Jersey. Today's her birthday. And my sister's my best friend on the planet, right? My very best friend. And she is the air that I breathe. She is the wind to my sails. I have no bigger cheerleader in my entire life besides her and my mother. And so I have brothers too who I love dearly, who are equally as dear to me as she is. But my sister, she is my great joy. And probably the greatest love story is our sistership. So happy birthday, Lo! My oldest daughter is named after my sister because that's how deep my love is for my sister. So Brianna Lorraine is named after Robin Lorraine. And happy birthday, Lo. I'll talk to you later. So, hey, Andrew.
Hey, Babz. Hey, I'm excited to do this with you. Yes, I do love poetry.
Andrew, we do a lot of things together. We do a lot.
That's
and
true.
One of the things that I absolutely love about you is that you have this love for poetry. And you are one of these people that actually will commit poetry to memory and recite it, which is something I used to do in my youth. And I haven't done it in a long. I have some poetries that I know by heart that I can say and I can rattle off. But you pick new poems and learn them and say them. So talk a little bit about your earliest memory of a poem that moved you. When did you know that poetry had you?
I think the only time I remember, when I was a kid, my parents always had books around the house. We had bookshelves all over the place. I was always reading. And this, of course, was before the internet, so that's all you had to do. But I remember years ago, I was probably maybe 14 or 15, and on the blackboard, I forget the exact words, but someone had written, "There was so much alcohol on his breath that it could intoxicate a small boy." And for some reason, I was just moved by the power of those few sparse words scrawled on the blackboard.
I like that. So, throughout your life, so in that moment, you knew that you liked those words. But when did you really say, I love poetry to the point where I'm going to go and purchase a book, or I'm going to go hear somebody read poetry, or I'm going to just go and explore poetry?
Well, it's a sad story because when I moved to California when I was about 30, and I have a really great friend there, he gave me a book. It was called 100 Poems from the Japanese by Ken Rexroth. And since this is Poetry Month, I was looking for that book. That was my beloved book. I always had.
That the one you were talking about?
That's the book that I lost, and I tore my entire house up trying to find it. And I'm beside myself that I can't find that book because I love that book. Wherever I went, it was a small book. I tried to memorize some of the poems in Japanese because they were just so incredibly beautiful. And so I was forced to go to Google Books last night and just scroll down some of the poems, some of my favorite poems. But that was a book that really motivated me to discover the incredible beauty of poetry.
Mm-hmm. And so what is it about poetry that, I know for me, poetry sort of brings everything down to the lowest common denominator. Like, I love reading, of course, you know that. Right. But a poem can take the whole world and give it to you on a page sometimes.
That's it. I mean, maybe because I grew up in New York City, maybe because I have ADD, but I like things very, very fast. and that's how I'm a huge fan of haiku and short poems.
You and I took a Japanese haiku class at Yale last fall.
That was probably the most amazing day of my entire life. I absolutely loved that class.
It was amazing. I think it was about maybe 15 people in the class, young people, very diverse.
Very diverse, and I think you and I were the only ones that were not fluent in Japanese.
I was trying to look for my haiku because I was gonna share.
Oh.
But I don't know what I did with it. Like, I don't know. I thought I saved it in my phone, but I didn't. So I got to go look a little harder for it. But that was an amazing class.
It was.
And you were like, we're the only ones in here that don't speak Japanese. And you were like really moved by that. I wasn't, because I'm like, I don't have any reason to speak Japanese.
Well, I just love being the dumbest man in the room. That was it. I was just so amazing.
Well, your haiku was lovely because you got the teacher's attention.
Oh, that's true.
Right? And it got talked about a great deal. So I was like, okay, all right, okay. I see where this is going. But you did, the first time I heard you recite a poem, I think, was at Ife, and Ife had a midnight soiree.
Oh, yeah, the Robin Cost Lewis poem.
Yes, and that was the first time I heard you do it. And I was so unbelievably impressed. I mean, I really was floored by the way that you brought flowers. I mean, you really stepped into the poem the way I think most poets want people to feel about their work, to really step into it. And you did that. So do you want to recite it? Can you recite it?
Well, that was well, actually, wait, where's that book? Wait.
So
can we do a commercial break? It'll take me a second to find that book. I thought I had the book.
Is that the erotic Noor book?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
The faded rose you gave me last summer. Yeah, I've turned a faded brown. Right. Let me get that book because.
So Andrew's got to get that book. So I already talked about this book the other day.
Oh.
That this book was the book that I used to use as my parting gifts from not so much failed love affairs, but failed love affairs, you know. And but anyway, I love this book so much over the years that I would give it as gifts to people, most to men. So I think, Andrew, you're the only person I ever given this book to that I had every expectations of seeing again. So usually when I give that book, and I haven't given this book in 30 years. So Andrew was probably the last person that got this book like 2 years ago. And I, of course I've seen him in the 2 years since. But that book used to be my parting book. But I should have prepped him that I was going to have him do this poem. So anyway, erotic noir is Black erotica. And it came at a time when people, the publishing world, had no real knowledge or awareness of Black people romance, Black people eroticism, or any of that. Eroticism that's healthy and whole, not sort of angry and violent. It's very sexy and sensual and very interesting. So anyway, I gave Andrew the book. He loved it. And then he committed this poem to memory. He showed up at Ife's midnight soiree and recited it, like stood up there and recited it. You know, it's one of those things where you just fall in love with people all the time. Do you know that feeling? Like sometimes I dislike my kids and then they'll do something and then I love them. I fall back and like with them. Not that I dislike you. I'm just saying, I was like, you know what? He is beautiful up there standing there reciting this poem, which is no easy feat. So go ahead.
Well, first off, this is a book that everybody should buy and everybody should own.
Or is Black Erotica. And it came at a time which is no easy feat. So, okay, there we go. A little technical glitch. Go ahead.
And also in the book, there's a great chapter on the use of erotic as power by Audre Lorde. And I kind of what you were talking about, that she discussed the difference between pornography and eroticism, and how eroticism is empowering and pornography is not. And unfortunately, I can't read all the poems in this book. I would love to, but this is the one poem that I did memorize. And it's a beautiful poem. And I remember I bought the faded roses for it.
Yes.
Wait.
You bought roses and you dried them.
Dried them, yes. I had to dry them.
In the oven.
In the oven, yes, because that's, well, without further ado. Faded roses, Afua Cooper. The roses you bought me on a Saturday evening in summer now have turned a dull brown in the vase. Yet I refuse to throw them out, these faded roses. Because every time I see them, I remember with sharp precision every second we spent together last summer. The seduction of a glance, the touching of fingertips, the tip of pink tongue on soft, hard brown nipples, the way you move under me, the way you move on top of me, the way you nibble at me greedily. It seemed we spent the summer rediscovering the wonders of love and the delight. Then, one evening, you had to leave. And you gave me red roses to honor our passion, you said. The passion that surges in me now as I see these faded roses and remember you.
I love that.
I love that poem.
Isn't that a beautiful poem?
I love that poem. I love that poem.
I love it. Even though it's a breakup kind of poem.
Yeah.
It's still very beautiful. Still very beautiful.
And it just captured that moment of summer and the heat of the summer and just the nights of the summer nights. So since I have the book and since I love haiku.
Oh, did you find one in there?
I found a couple. I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but I love this guy. Kalamu Ya Salam. He's got a bunch, and some I can even read over the air. So, and what I like about haiku is it's short, but basically what it does is, and you and I kind of see poetry different in some ways, I think.
Yeah.
But what I like about haiku is that it basically paints these broad strokes, and it's up to you to kind of color it in and fill in the missing details. So each person responds differently to the haiku. So I think of you as rain, and I as dry earth cracked beneath a cloudless sky.
I know this one. You've said this one.
I love this one. I love this one.
I love that too. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
There's not a bad poem in that daggone book.
No. I remember you gave this book. I started tearing through this book, and then I realized I had to just
slow down.
Slow down.
Everything can't be fast.
That's right. And also, I wanted to save the moment. Okay, so here we go. We'll turn the heat up just a little bit.
All right.
but not too much.
It's a morning show.
That's right. This is another great poem by him. I quiver inside you like the ground shaking when a mighty tree falls. Okay, so I'll close this book and I'll put it away.
Woo! See, this is why Midnight Noir, Midnight Soiree was so successful, because
that was an amazing night. That
it's because you this is nighttime stuff. This is when you get the bedroom voice.
No, and you're right. I was nervous as hell. I really was.
I mean, you really couldn't tell. I mean, you stood up there. I mean, you were so confident, and you looked so cute.
Thank you. But you know what it was? It was there was some guy there, and we were talking in Ife's kitchen, and he said, "Have you done this before?" I says, "No." And he goes, "Are you nervous?" I said, "Yes." I said more than that, but this is the radio show, so somebody said yes. And he said, "You're going to be great. You're going to be great." And matter of fact, I actually gave him my copy of the book. I had to buy another copy of the book, but
yes, and I still see them.
Yeah, so I think he kind of settled me down.
So in talking about poetry, do you read poetry often? Do you go to poetry when you feel some kind of way about the world? Like when is a good time for you to sort of immerse yourself in poetry? Is it in whenever, or are there deliberate times?
Yeah, I think it's totally random. It's totally random. I mean, you've been a wonderful source for me. You give me so many books. I grabbed all my books last night, and they're all from you.
And the same. I could say the same. Got a lot of books between us.
Yeah. But no, it kind of comes in waves. It comes in waves. But what I thought was great was years ago, I used to go, my girlfriend's kid went to a school here in Madison, and they made every kid memorize a poem and read a poem on stage. Mm-hmm. And some of the poems were absolutely fantastic, and the kids were incredible. And I love the idea of making the kids memorize poems. And there's this one poem by Billy Collins, who writes very, very simply. And it's called On Turning 10. And to hear a 10-year-old kid read this poem, it just tore my heart out. So this is On Turning 10 by Billy Collins. The whole idea of it makes me feel like I'm coming down with something worse than any stomachache or the headaches I get from reading in bad light. A kind of measles of the spirit, a mumps of the psyche, a disfiguring chickenpox of the soul. You tell me it's too early to be looking back, but that's because you've forgotten the perfect simplicity of being one and the beautiful complexity introduced by two. But I can lie in my bed and remember every digit. At 4, I was an Arabian wizard. I could make myself invisible by drinking a glass of milk a certain way. At 7, I was a soldier. At 9, a prince. But now, I'm mostly at the window, watching the late afternoon light. Back then, I never felt so solemnly against the side of my treehouse. And my bicycle never leaned against the garage as it does today. All the dark blue speed drained out of it. This is the beginning of sadness, I say to myself. As I walk through the universe in my sneakers, it's time to say goodbye to my imaginary friends. Time to turn the first big number. It seems only yesterday I used to believe there was nothing under my skin but light. If you cut me, I could shine. But now, when I fall upon the sidewalks of life, I skin my knees. I bleed.
I love that.
Yeah. But imagine a 10-year-old kid reciting that poem.
You know, that's the thing where a 10-year-old kid at 10 wouldn't get it. So
yeah.
That's a poem that you have to grow into. So I like to see, well, I know this kid is not 10. This kid is a grown person now,
Yeah,
right?
no.
But I wonder what he would think of this poem now at his I guess he would have to be what, mid-20s now or something, at least, or
No. He wrote it when he was older, but I'm saying a 10-year-old
he
kid.
was older. Okay.
A 10-year-old kid recited that poem.
I would love to see somebody revisit that, you know, read it when they're young and then revisit. That's the beauty of a poem, though, right? You read something, at least for me, I could read poems when I was younger. I remember when I was in college and I was a huge fan of Nikki Giovanni. And I would read her poems because I was a long way from home. I was in college in North Carolina, and I would read these poems. And now that I'm older, revisiting them and having seen Nikki just recently here at Yale, the poems take on a different meaning at 56, almost 57.
Oh, sure.
At 2020.
well, sure. I mean, there's that quote by Ali. You know, if a man thinks the same way at 50 as he does at 20, he's wasted 30 years of his life.
Yes.
So of course you're going to respond differently to the poems later on, and that's the beauty of poetry.
Yes.
Different things at different times.
You can speak and read in different languages, Spanish and French.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. And a lot of poems I like to memorize in Spanish or French because they're great for grammar, number one. But also you really better understand the actual meaning of the words. And sometimes I understand the sentiment, but I don't understand the words sometimes. And they're both beautiful in English and in Spanish. But at times it's almost like the difference between Tropicana orange juice and freshly squeezed orange juice. They're both pretty good, but there's a certain taste that just kind of lost in translation.
Now, do you have any committed to memory, or do you have any books around? Because you went and bought this book. I have this book, which you
yeah.
you weren't enamored of, which I was trying to explain to you how I bought this book. I don't even know how I didn't buy this in Paris, but I must have saw it somewhere, and I picked it up. And there's only like 1 or 2 poems in here that I absolutely love. And then I shared it with you, and I think you went and got it or something. So, but anyway, but do you have any?
Well,
in either language or
both. Oh, yeah. Well. I mean, in that book, I of course had to buy that book. I mean, I absolutely love that book. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Une orange sur la table, et ta robe sur le tapis, et toi dans mon lit. Tout présent, fraîcheur de la nuit, chaleur de ma vie. Do you know the English version of that?
No. Is it in the book?
Yeah. So it's the one you liked. It's an orange on the table.
Oh yeah.
So do you want to read the English version of it?
I will. I have the book, but now I gotta find it. I thought I had it like okay.
Okay.
An orange on the table. Your dress on the rug, and you in my bed. Sweet present of the present, cool of night, warmth of my life. This is my favorite, one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
But so you'll see like some of the words, they rhyme. You know, fraîcheur, chaleur, freshness, heat. You know, du présent, the same word, so that they lose some of the beautiful melodic sound when they're translated, but they still have the same sentiment, but there's there's something missing. They're both beautiful poems.
And then this poem, now you are a fan of Jacques.
Oh, Jacques Prevat, I love him. But it's interesting, Babz, because you and I talk about how people recite their own poems. And I love to read the backstory and love to listen to the author read his or her poem. But you're the opposite, aren't you? You like to read it yourself and kind of interpret it in your own way.
I do. And just so people will understand, so I'll send Andrew a poem in the morning that I think I like a lot. And it could be that I like the poem, or it could be that I like the backstory. So not only does Andrew read the story, read the poem, he listens to the author recite the poem. I never listen to the author recite the poem because I generally don't like the way authors read their own stuff. Very few authors of poems that I really enjoy, you know, like a Maya Angelou or Nikki Giovanni, that kind of thing. So I prefer, when I read a poem, I like to hear it in my own voice. Not that I think my voice is great. I just like to hear it in my own head with my own cadence and my own emphasis on things, so that I'm not. But I'm not against hearing authors reading their poem. But you're just the opposite. You'll hear the whole thing.
That's true. But it's funny, because I went to YouTube and I listened to Jacques Prevat read his poem, that exact poem, and it's "On rond sur la table, ta robe sur la tapis." It was pretty boring. I mean, my French isn't that good, but you're a Frenchman. Come on, where's the warmth? You're like, you know, it was like reading the phone book. It was just,
See, that's my thing. Is it could be a hit or miss.
Right.
That we like you and I love Marilyn Nelson, right? She was a Connecticut poet laureate at one point, and we saw her at the Beinecke last fall, I guess.
Yeah, that was great.
And I love hearing her read her work. Her work. You know, but rarely do poets do a good job with their own work.
Well, it's funny you mention, because I happen to have one of her poems here.
Oh yeah, I was hoping that you would. You know, I don't have any of her books, which is, I'm always shocked when I don't have somebody's work that I enjoy.
Sure.
Like, I don't know why I don't have her work. So,
well,
read it.
But so you remember the story of how I met her? I was on the plane flying back from South Carolina, and and she was next to me, and she's reading a small little book on the Tulsa Massacre. So I turned to her. I says, I waited till she was finished. I said, "Ooh, may I take a look at your book?" And she was surprised that I knew about the Tulsa Massacre. So she gave it to me, and it was a small book, so I could read it pretty quickly, and I read it. And then we started a chat, and then she told me she was a professor of English, and she was a poet. And of course, my eyes just lit up. So I said, "Oh, really?" And I was a jerk. I said, "So are you published?" And she said, "Yes." And that was it. I mean,
and then you get back.
That's right. That's right. And then I get back, and then I Google her, and I realized that she was like the Connecticut Poet Laureate for 5 years, you know, in 2001. I go, oh. But so I forgot something happened, and I sent her. Oh, I think right, because I think NPR did a piece about the massacre, and I'd sent her a letter. And she sent me a note back. No, she was amazing, and also, you know, she was a daughter of one of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes.
And so she goes to Oklahoma, for various reasons, but she has a whole series of poems, and it's a long poem, and you know me, I like short poems, so I grabbed a section of it, and this is it's called Boley Rodeo, which is held in Boley, Oklahoma.
Yes.
And it's called Saddle Bronc Riding. And it's interesting to think about, you know, African Americans in America, and I think it's another poem about that. So, Saddle Bronc Riding. It's not the leather riding gloves, and it's not the fringed duckskin chaps, not the worn-in and dusty boots, not the spurs blunted silver stall, not the wide-brimmed hat, both winged helmet and regal crown. It's not the clothes that make the cowboy. It's something beneath a bronze face, in the level gaze from dark eyes. And of course, it's heart that puts you. The reins in one hand free, waving with the horse's rhythm, your heel spur from neck to flank on this bronc called America.
Yes.
I love that. I love
you
that.
read that to me too before. And she was you liked that one. And we got the chance to talk with her when she did a reading at the Beinecke last fall, you know. And I saw her she came to Jazz Wear too.
Oh, great.
She didn't make that one. That was the one at the New Haven Museum. And she came with her friend, and she's so cute and delightful. You know?
No, she's incredible. She's incredible.
Yes. So now, do you have any favorite poets? Like, do you have poets that you're just like, this is my absolute favorite? Like,
I think I have no absolute favorites, but I'm a huge fan, and I've got a couple of poems by Isa. Probably one of the famous. There are pretty much three famous haiku poets: is Basho, Busan, and Isa. And he had a very, very sad life. His mother died when he was 3. His wife died after 8 years or 10 years of marriage. His son died. So he's a very, very, very sad man. But he managed to live on. So here's a sad poem about mother I never knew. Every time I see the ocean, every time. So they're sad. They're sad, but sometimes they're beautiful, or they make you think. But here's one. Just in this world, we walk on the roof of hell, gazing at flowers.
That's when you gotta sit with.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. And it's just it's a couple words. It's a couple words, but there's a lot going on there. So I think he is probably my favorite poet. Because there's a simplicity to his words, and it's up to you to, as I said, to kind of fill in the missing spots and kind of put yourself there and imagine what's going on, what moved him to write that poem. What was he trying to capture? What was he trying to say at that moment?
Now you've recently discovered what's the brother's name whose poetry you have committed? You've committed to memory. I think I must have sent it to you on YouTube or something or other, and you went through his whole catalog, and you loved everything, and then you committed one of them to memory, which I was again sorely impressed. Thoroughly, impressed.
I memorized the other one too. But see, the thing is, that's Rudy Francisco.
Yes.
And he's probably like one of the greater slam poets in the United States. And the problem is, I absolutely adore slam poetry. I just love slam poetry.
Yes.
But if there's like difference between an English translation or a French poem, it's Tropicana versus freshly squeezed orange juice. The problem is when a guy like me reads a Rudy Francisco poem, it's tang when I do it.
We have this conversation. I think you're judging yourself too harshly, because I think as a poet, and I consider myself a poet, we want other people to sort of take the work and own the work. Like, I don't think he'd be like, oh my God, don't do my poem. I think he would be like, oh my God, you're doing my poem. You're saying my poem.
Maybe, but the problem is I'm as I'm reciting the poem in the back of my mind, I'm hearing him say, "Oh man, that guy would do so much better."
Well, I mean, he's a poet and a performer of his poetry.
Okay,
that's a different kind of vibe, right? Like,
right.
When he steps onto a stage, because he is a performer, we expect the performance.
Sure.
You know, but everyday people in our everyday practical lives, we recite a poem of somebody's. I think people are flattered by that.
I guess so, but also in some ways, it's almost like I'm stealing something from him. It's like I'm copying the answers on some guy's test next to me, because I mean, he wrote those words. He wrote those words. You know, I mean, so you know, when he says, you know, I would massage your back until your skin sings songs your lips don't even know the words to. How can I say that when he created those words himself? So for me to kind of recreate that myself, it's
well, you don't get to recreate.
It's not fair
version of that, but you recreate for yourself that what it means to you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like you can't take on somebody else's style or whatever, but you certainly can. Just like you know, you like Jock's work. And I think you probably did a better job than Jock himself did with reciting it.
Well, he just did a bad job. The bar was so low that, you know.
I mean, I just think, you know, it's all about your interpretation and how. I mean, if you come to it with integrity and you come to it with a sincere love of the work and the words,
sure,
it comes across. I mean, you know, I recite people's poetry, and I know damn well I'm no Nikki Giovanni or Angela Maya Angelou, but you know, I will attempt it.
Sure. Well,
just say it.
I know. I get no because the other poem, and you know, that I love also are all the poems by Robin Cost Lewis.
Yes.
I mean that's it's amazing, and this is, I guess this is a poem that really chokes me up.
Hold it up so we can see it. Hold the book up. Yeah, so you gave me that as a gift.
Did I give it to you?
Beautiful book.
But what, did I give it to you and then you gave me one also or something like that?
At this point, I don't know.
because in this and they've got the deckled edges on the side of the page. It's beautiful. So she has a couple poems here about Black veterans returning back from World War II. Mm-hmm. And actually this poem here, this is a poem I memorized a while ago, is perfect because it's Easter, and you may have seen those images of soldiers in World War II writing Easter eggs for Hitler on the bombs.
Yeah.
And so this poem that I don't know, maybe because I'm a cultural Jew and my parents grew up during World War II, and I remember when I used to buy chicken from this place, there was an old Jewish guy that actually had, you know, scrawled on his right arm, you know, a serial number from a concentration camp. Mm-hmm. But when I read this poem, I'm in this goddamn plane. From, to, at last, a dark, murderous lunatic to whom they are allowed to respond. Here, no one expects to be strung up by their neck, dangled, and then left be cut down from a tall tree and not cry. No law here will require them to watch their families hurled on top of the world's bright fire over generations without complaint, unattended by rage's holiness or the clear mirror of grief. They find some chalk to celebrate. While one loads, one lifts, then checks. Then just before they ignite the bomb, they write on a shell from Harlem to Hitler, and then stand back for the camera, smiling. Wow.
That's pretty powerful.
That is, and that's a poem that when I tried to memorize it last year, I just could not get the concept unattended by rage's holiness. For me, there was this dichotomy between rage and holiness. I couldn't get it. This is so hard. And then one, it just clicked. I go, wow, that's so beautiful. That's so powerful. And I could just imagine her just writing with a little piece of paper, just bad rage, upset rage, and then rage's holiness, and just clicking. And just how wonderful is that?
I see. This is what I love about you, is that you will wrestle with the poem for a good while. And we've had discussions about when you wrestled with passages of poems or the entire poem itself. And that's how I come to poetry too. Sometimes it's quite disturbing, right? Or arresting. And I have to keep at it until I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to get here? What am I supposed to hear? What do I feel? What am I supposed to learn? You know, I'm always, you know, some poems are easily digested, right? You can just like, okay, I get it. But some poems take a little time and energy and effort, and you have to put it down and then go back to it and then like wrestle with it some more.
Right.
So that's why it's good to have somebody like you where you can have these conversations with about this particular passage or this particular poem, you know, to get some, you know, just to help clear or clarify for myself. Am I moving in the right direction with this poem? Like, what am I missing? What am I hearing? You know, why is this bothering me?
Right. Or maybe the poem's not for you. I mean, every poem was not for you.
Wow. I guess you're right. I never think that there's not a poem for me. I think if a poem finds me, it's supposed to find me.
That's true.
You know, and so I like that.
Okay.
Or maybe I need to put it away and then come back to it, and maybe it'll be for me at a later time.
I mean, aren't there books you start to read and you don't like it and you put it down and you pick it up a couple years later and you just devour the book and say, what was I missing back then? You've changed. Yeah. That was not the right moment to take it in.
Yes, that's a good point. I like that. All right, well, we have come to the end. I've enjoyed this conversation.
So did I. I had a great time.
I don't like the conversations we have anyway, offline. So people get a little slice of how we are with each other, how we talk about things. But we talk about poetry a great deal.
We do.
And that's why I wanted you to be my guest today, because I knew if anybody could talk about various types of poetry and recite poetry, it would be you. So thank you. I'm so grateful for your friendship and love.
Well, thank you for all the wonderful. You owe my eyes and my heart to some amazing poetry, and for that, I can never thank you. I can never thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to recite one out before we go?
Sure. The Poet X.
Oh!
Everyone survived. This is a wonderful story about a young Jamaican girl in Harlem finding her voice through poetry, and each page is a poem.
Yes. Each
page is a poem, and I read this book in a day and a half, and I was so sad when it was over. And I just grabbed I turned one page last night. I said, that's perfect. That's perfect, because it's about she's in high school and she falls in love with a boy in her bio class. And she's kind of wrestling with everything. And this is it, swoon. In science, we learned that thermal conductivity is how heat flows through some materials better than others. But who knew words, when said by the right person, by a boy who raised your temperature, move heat like nothing else? Shoot a shock of warmth from your curls to your toes. Buy this book, The Poet X.
Thank you. You raised my temperature, I tell you. You are a good friend. Thank you, Andrew Kaplan.
Well, thank you, Babz. I had a great time.
Harry, thank you very much.
Thanks, Harry.
Out. And I'll talk to you offline.
Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light.